All right, guys, this is the last video here of our mock draft the night before the NFL draft. There she is approaching midnight, so it's almost draft day. So we have the first round in two separate videos, and then also the first 16 picks, the second round in another video. This will be the last one we're going to be talking about. We're going to be doing the last 16 picks of the second round, and we're also going to be doing kind of a wrap up, which will involve like guys that are still left on the board that we think could be steals in the later rounds. We're also going to be doing kind of looking at see where we see any reaches, any steals, which team we think maybe have the best draft in our mock draft. So we'll have that at the end of this episode as well. But before that, we're going to go ahead and continue here at 49 with the New Orleans Saints. First round, we had them taking two receivers, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, the teammates. I'm not sure how realistic that is, but I just feel like with how weak their receiver position is, especially when Michael Thomas is hurt, and the way the board fell, I kind of feel like that's not a bad decision. And I'm going to get a quarterback that's going to be kind of their guy. I'm not high on Desmond Ridder really, but I feel like if you're the Saints, right now you have Jameis Winston. Give Desmond Ridder a couple years to develop. And if he can get more accurate, he has every other tool you look for. But it's just not very accurate, which scares me. But at 49, you're taking a second round pick on him. A lot less pressure on that hitting than a first round pick. So I don't mind the Desmond Ridder picker at 49.
So the Kansas City Chiefs at 50.
Yeah, Christian Watson and David Ajabo in the first round.
So I'm going to go with Jalen Pitre out of Baylor as their safety.
You have the two potential guys, and you have the very stalwart. I like that, Pitre.
Yeah, I think Pitre's going to be very, very good. He's a very safe pick at the next level.
Just a very solid overall safety. He may not blow you away, but he is a very good safety.
Agreed.
I mean, when I watched him at Baylor, he was literally the best player on the defense, and it wasn't even close. The guy and Baylor's defense is really good too, so he was fun to watch. All right, now the Eagles at 51. First round, we had them take Drake London and Trent McDuffie. So now, edge is the big issue. Is the big weakness here. I'm gonna go Logan Hall. I think it may be a little bit of a reach, but with how big of a need edge really is, Philadelphia is able to hit all three of their main needs here: getting a receiver, getting a cornerback, and getting an edge. Logan Hall is a very good athlete, very good player. I worry a little bit about how raw he actually is, but if he does develop, he can be definitely really, really good. Kind of reminds me of Brandon Graham as well, who had a couple of really, really bright spots early on for the Eagles. Obviously, it's kind of cooled off as seasons have gone on and people kind of figure him out. But I think he's got a lot of Brandon Graham look-alike coming out. But I think he may be a little bit more polished than Brandon Graham was. Brandon Graham was very, very, very raw, just pure athlete.
Yeah, I think, Houston has had their fair share of good defensive linemen in recent memory, and I think Logan Hall can be another one of those guys that can have a successful career at the next level. Who does Ed Oliver play? Oh, he plays for the Bills, doesn't he? Yeah. For me, with the Pittsburgh at 52.
They had Pickett in the first round.
We have Kenny Pickett staying home. I actually have Tariq Woolen at 52 out of UTSA.
I like
that. He actually ran a little below a 4.3, so he's incredibly fast.
And his size too, which is insane.
And his size, he's a fairly big corner, so I think he'll plug in really well there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's got everything you look for athletically. He's fast, very big, like 6'2" or 6'3" and a thick. The fact he's that fast is kind of nuts. It's all just technical at this point. And we've seen the Steelers develop really good DBs in the past. So, like, you have Mike Tomlin, one of the better defensive coaches in all of the NFL. I think that's a really, really good fit.
Yeah, I would be very happy with that pick if I was a Pittsburgh fan.
Now the Packers. I'm going to take Isaiah Spiller on precedent. Just kidding, I'm not going to do that. But that Dylan pick was extremely stupid that year. I'm sorry. I know he was good, but they had Aaron Jones. They still have Aaron Jones. Either way, in actuality, it's an odd spot. Not really too many positions that the Packers really need, obviously. We already filled it with a wide receiver early on with Treylon Burks and then George Karlaftis at the edge. So your main two needs that they needed to meet were met already. I know this sounds crazy. They signed Sammy Watkins, I know, but it's a 1-year thing and he's going to be gone next year. I'm going to go ahead and double up on wide receiver. I'm going to actually take Khalil Shakir. The guy is a freak athlete. Fun. He's twitchy as all heck. I mean, and the whole thought process here is you already got Treylon Burks, who just makes things happen after the catch. Khalil Shakir does the exact same thing. Maybe not to the level of Treylon Burks. That's also why Khalil Shakir is taken at 53 here compared to Treylon Burks at 22. I just like it. I think that, and if you look at the Packers in the past, they've always been able to make things happen with those guys. I mean, look at Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb was twitchy coming out of college, kind of was do-it-all guy, and Packers made him really, really good. So it's definitely a reach here, but I'm not as high on either one of David Bell or Calvin Austin as a lot of people are. And I think that receiver is probably where I go here because I don't like really any of the other guys for the Packers right now.
Yeah, I think he's a good fit to go on the other side of Treylon Burks. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with giving Aaron Rodgers even more talent. I don't think that's a bad idea.
Draft receiver. We know this is probably not very realistic because we know the Packers don't draft receivers. We know this, but we're trying to think the best for the Packers where they take 2 receivers in the draft. But
so for me, with the Patriots,
I'm pretty sure did they get Kenyon Green? No, they got Zion Johnson.
So they took care of their interior offensive lineman. So I think they'll go either offense or defense here, obviously, but I can see the Patriots going Christian Harris, linebacker, Alabama.
He's a good athlete.
He's a great athlete. He'll be coached by Bill Belichick.
After Saban.
So he's gonna be a polished product by the time he's done. And I would be really excited if I was a pass fan to get Christian Harris at 54. I mean,
yeah, I think he's not as good Dante Hightower, which if you can get a 80% Dante Hightower in the second round, you're happy.
Yeah, I would take that any day of the week.
Yeah. All right, now Cardinals at 55. Had to take Boye Mafe and a little bit of an early pick last time, but I think it was kind of where they need to go. And I think they'd be ecstatic of Roger McCreary sitting here at 55. I mean, McCreary, his issue is he's very handsy. We've seen games like against Alabama this past year where he looked fantastic. And we've also seen games where he can't keep his hands off anybody and he's penalized for multiple times throughout the game. But McCreary's got the man-to-man skills that if they can teach him to quit using his hands as much, Roger McCreary can be a CB1 potential. So he's a pretty good ball hawk with it too. If they can just cut down those penalties, which does kind of worry me with Arizona with Kingsbury as your head coach, but I still think it's a pretty darn good pick here at 55.
Yeah, Roger McCreary, watching him play to Auburn, against all the SEC talent, he's a pretty physical corner. I mean, he'll have to kind of clean up a little bit of his pass interference calls, but I mean, overall, as a skilled ball player, I mean, I think he has all the tools to be really good at the next level. With Dallas at 56, I think this is kind of like this is to help Prescott, I think go Jamari Sawyer in interior offensive lineman out of Georgia.
I like that.
Kind of beef up that O line to protect Prescott doesn't get hurt again.
Yeah, especially with us not going with an offensive lineman in the first round for him was going Dax Hill. They need to beef up that interior offensive line. They've lost a few guys out of that offensive line the last 2 years. So getting a Alex Sawyer would be definitely a very well needed thing. He's another plug and play guy at offensive guard.
And
So,
I mean, for Jamari Sawyer, look at the tape it did against Hutchinson in that semifinal game against Michigan. I mean, he didn't even touch Stetson Bennett once.
mhm.
And he was on that left tackle that Hutchinson was trying to get towards him on. So I mean, he's going to be fine at the next level. And the Buffalo Bills 57.
Bills at 57. We had them go corner earlier. I think it was Andrew Booth, who I think they would be very happy with if he fell to 25. I'm not super high on him, obviously, as I said earlier, but very good value there. I see a lot of people talk about how they need a receiver. I personally don't see that as much as a lot of people do. I think that if the Chiefs playoff game showed anything, it showed that Gabe Davis has potential to be a good wide receiver too, to Diggs' one. This is definitely a biased pick as a Kentucky fan. I'm actually gonna go Wan'Dale Robinson. The guy was electric in college. He's got freak out. He's really quick, really shifty, really good return guy. And if you look at Buffalo, they already have their bigger receivers. I mean, Diggs is not super big, but he's still a big play receiver. And you have Gabe Davis, and then you have Cole Beasley to be a typical slot guy. Wan'Dale Robinson's a gadget player. They really don't have anyone like that currently.
Yeah.
I think maybe 57, maybe a little high. Maybe you can trade back and get him, but we're not doing trade backs. And I really wanted to get him on the Bills right here. I mean, I just think that if you have Josh Allen with a guy with that kind of athleticism and that kind of gadget stuff to it, I think he's a really solid pick.
To go along, Knox a tight end and then Gabe Davis and Diggs. I mean, that's pretty good offense right there.
Yeah, it really is. Now, your Falcons, 58.
Yeah. They just need so much. They really need a ton.
I mean, y'all haven't taken a receiver yet, and obviously you've seen your receiver room. Is there anyone?
Is very thin, very pitiful. Yeah, I'm going David Bell, wide receiver, Purdue.
Not a bad pick.
He's really talented, 6'2", 6'3". He has pretty good hands. I think he can be definitely coached up to be a really good wide receiver too, or at least a second option behind Kyle Pitts. He'll take a little bit of that off of Pitts at being a wide receiver. I guess technically one for now, but he won't be one forever. I think he's definitely a wide receiver that can keep in that organization for a long time. I think he'll definitely be talented. So, I mean, as a Falcons fan, I would be pretty pleasant with this draft so far.
Yeah, it's a pretty darn good draft for you. Packers, we have them taking Burks, Shakir, and Karlaftis so far. I'm gonna have them go with Daniel Falalele, out of Minnesota. A very raw tackle, but he's got everything you look for. 4-year starter, really solid offensive tackle. Still raw though. But I think with how much they need help on the offensive line, I mean, you see that 49ers playoff game and Rodgers was rushed virtually every time he tried to drop back. So I think adding a guy like Falalele will be a very big help, especially considering how injury prone their offensive line's been lately as well.
Yeah. I think adding a guy like Falalele from Minnesota is definitely going to help Rodgers not run for his life every other play. So that's a really, really good pick. For Tampa, can you go to the safeties real quick? Something.
Nothing much there.
Yeah, go back to just all players because there's someone who I had in mind. I just want to look at what safeties are left on the board. I know that this may not be the most need they have, but I'm gonna go DeMarvin Neal, Texas A&M interior defensive lineman.
I like it.
It just kind of beefs up their front even more than it already is. And some guys, like Vita Vea, he's kind of gonna start getting up there in age, and he's kind of just someone that can kind of plug in for when he kind of teeters off. So I mean, it's just kind of like a filler pick for the future out of Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm. He's a guy that if you could put alongside Vita Vea if you wanted to go into a 4-3 front for any reason, or a nickel front, and then you also could just have him back up Vita Vea for a little bit, and then if you're maybe able to see if you can get him to be on one of the end positions in a 3-4, into the 3-4, if you could find a way to develop him like that, he could be a great contributor to that team. Of course, he's got some character issues with him, but if you can get him at 60, I think it's good value.
Yeah, I agree. And San Fran at 61. Is this
first pick?
First pick?
They're an odd team. I don't really like too many guys here on the board, but they do have the situation right now with Deebo Samuel. I'm actually going to go Alec Pierce here. I'm not super high on him. Like I've seen some people have him early second round or late first round in some mock drafts. I wouldn't go that far with him. But he is a really good athlete, really big, pretty good size, really fast, good jump ball guy. He played well against Alabama in his game against the top tier competition. He's got some concerns for me. How much of it was the lower competition that he kind of dominated? Obviously, I say that, but also had Christian Watson go first round. But I think it's just different athleticism. He's not 6'4" running a 4.3, but he definitely is still a fast receiver. And he was really, really good at Cincinnati. And I feel like if Ritter set his mind to throwing the ball more to Pierce, we may see Pierce even farther up this board. And the Niners, of course, probably will need that receiver, especially if Deebo does end up getting traded, which is kind of up in the air still. Who knows? Maybe it happens on draft night. I don't know, but which would happen on draft night. I'm assuming they probably would get one of the receivers in the first round because they get at least one first rounder for him.
I think Pierce is definitely easily mid to late second round receiver. I mean, he was very, very good at Cincinnati, and I personally don't think it's lower competition. I think he's just that good. I think he's just going to be a good overall player at the next level if he gets the right team.
Mm-hmm.
I think catching balls from Trey Lance eventually definitely will be one of the best things for Pierce. With the 62nd pick, Kansas City may not be a super popular pick at 62, but Isaiah Spiller, running back out of Texas A&M.
I feel like Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been one of the bigger busts the Chiefs have had in recent years. So I don't mind. I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I don't think he's getting it done. I don't think he's a running RB1 like they thought he was. I thought they should have took DeAndre Swift in that moment, but they took Clyde Edwards-Helaire instead.
I think they definitely wish that this 47 and 48 wouldn't have happened, though. I think that Walker and Hall are like at one level, and then you kind of drop off a little bit to Spiller. But I think Spiller is still a good running back.
Agreed.
I mean, Kansas City walks out with Watson, Ojabo, Petrie, and Spiller. You can't really be too mad about that if you're Kansas City at all.
Yeah, that's also a really good draft.
Now, Cincinnati with the next to last pick of this draft. Cornerback, of course, is a big need. I mean, we saw Eli Apple get destroyed, but there's nobody there that you can look at. Kobe Bryant, I think, would be a good third round pick if you were able to get him there. But right now, I think that's way too early. I know I say that as I took Wan'Dale Robinson here in the second round. But I'm going to go Sean Ryan, another guy. I know we already took an interior offensive lineman with Linderbaum. I don't care. Give Joe Burrow protection, please.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's the easiest pick to make. Just give Burrow protection because he's your franchise. If Joe Burrow is not there or Joe Burrow is not playing, you are not going to compete. So
Yeah,
get as many bodies in there that you can and see which ones hit.
yeah. I would be huge on getting him, if I'm a Bengals fan, to get him as much protection as humanly possible. Because, or if you had the protection you needed in that Super Bowl, you would have won the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like rocket science to figure that out. Obviously, on the last play of the game, you had your wide receiver shooting down the sideline. But yeah, this may not be a super popular at this point in the draft from the Broncos, but I think I'd probably take Josh Pascal out of Kentucky edge.
I like the guy. He's a really solid player. In my opinion. But yeah, Pascal, he's a very solid, like just overall strong and active edge rusher. Kind of was surprised he actually did declare this year. But if he goes here in the late second round, I can definitely see why he declared.
Yeah, I think could be good. He played against elite level competition in the SEC. I think he'll be fine at the next level.
I agree.
All right.
So here we are. We're here at the end of the draft. Just kind of run down for everybody. Top 5 was Walker, Hutchinson, Gardner, Thibodeau, Johnson. Then it was Willis, Neal, Hamilton, Iquanu, and Cross. Jameson Williams, Derek Stingley, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Trent McDuffie, Wilson, Pennig, Drake London, Chris Olave, Kenny Pickett, Zion Johnson, Treylon Burks, Boye Mafe, Daxton Hill, Andrew Booth, then Devin Lloyd, Kenyon Green, George Karlaftis, Christian Watson, and David Ajabo. Then Linderbaum and Howell round out the first round. And then second round is here. What picker do you think, which team do you think actually came out with the best mock draft here? Like just the draft from the mock draft.
I think the Giants have a really good draft. I think the Chiefs have an amazing draft.
The Giants with Johnson, Neal, and then in the second round, Nakobe Dean. It's a pretty darn good draft.
That's an amazing draft. And I think the Chiefs also have a really, really good draft.
Spiller, Petrie, Ajabo, and Watson.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's really just
you go with 2 really NFL ready players with Petrie and Spiller, and you get 2 guys that are developmental guys that can be really, 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 really good if they're healthy and develop in Watson and Ojabo. I think for me, my best draft would probably be the Seahawks. You end up with Iquanu, who I think is probably the second best who's definitely the second best offensive tackle in my opinion in the draft. I think he's a top 5 player, top 5 to 7 player in the draft. And then you also walk out with Matt Corral and Kyler Gordon. Like Matt Corral is my top quarterback in the class, and they needed a quarterback really bad. I mean, right now their starting quarterback is Drew Lock. I mean, if you walk out with those 3, I think the Seahawks have the best draft. I will also say, I think that the New York Jets had a really good draft here. You get Thibodeau, who I'm not super high on Thibodeau, but if he hits, he's the best player in the draft, which I think you can take a shot on that because at 10, you do get a very safe player in Charles Cross to be your offensive tackle for the future. And you also get Lewis Seen, who I think is and Sky Moore. Like those guys are really good second round picks. So the big thing with them is if Thibodeau hits, I think it's the best pick possible. I think that's the best. It could be the best draft. But I just think the Seahawks with literally getting Iquanu, who could easily go top 3, as well as getting, in my opinion, the top quarterback and a top 5 corner in the class. I think that's just a great draft from Seattle.
Yeah, I think there's several mocks right here that we have that teams just absolutely lucked out. I don't really think anyone necessarily had a bad draft so far in this, but definitely those 3 or 4 teams we named are definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the Saints maybe with taking 2 receivers in the first and then in the second getting Desmond Ritter. So I mean, I don't really love that draft really, but I could see it easily happening because those are such obvious needs for New Orleans. And obviously they need to so obviously they need to get better at a lot of other positions as well. But I think they have to rebuild because they're so far in cap hell, to be completely honest. So I think that starting off getting some young receivers so you can get rid of Michael Thomas's contract, so you can get rid of Jameis Winston, so you can rebuild that young team. Then if in Desmond Ritter, I'm not high on, but if he does hit, then you have a quarterback on a rookie contract for years to come. I think that's probably the most questionable draft ever. I mean, you could say Carolina would take Malik Willis 6, but I mean, it's quarterback. They're gonna have to go quarterback at some point in this draft, and they don't have a second round pick. So that's kind of an issue. Is there anybody in this draft that you're surprised went in the second round? I mean, usually first. I mean, all these guys, like obviously, all the first round guys are gonna go, or they wouldn't be taken in the first round. But is there anyone you're surprised that came up in the second round? I mean, obviously, the main ones I could tell were probably Shakir and Robinson, probably the two that really kind of stand out for me. But I could easily see it happening.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I've seen some other mocks recently that had George Pickens going early first. I think he's still a second round pick. Talent wise, he's a first round pick. Back in second. Dean also, I think, will be a first round pick. Dotson, I can easily see him being a first round pick. I mean, he's only 2 picks into the second round, but I can see it being in the mid to late 20s.
I mean, all you'd have to do there is literally flip Dotson and Howell, and you could see that happening too.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the nice thing with the Lions here is they're kind of in a position of it doesn't matter who we take when we take the quarterback because the Jacksonville Jaguars are not taking a quarterback.
Yeah, that'd be really idiotic to decide to take Howell when they have Lawrence.
Exactly. So I think that the Lions, you could definitely switch Dotson and Howell, and you could still get the same guys. There's not really anyone that really stands out as guys that I feel like shouldn't be in the draft. I mean, back-to-back running backs is kind of bold, but I feel like both these teams kind of do need running back. Again, I said Washington. I love how this thing still says Washington. But Washington needs, in my opinion, they just need a workhorse back. I mean, as much as I love McKissick and as much as I really loved Gibson, I think Gibson's more. I feel like they're both kind of I feel like McKissick's that gadget guy out of the backfield, and I feel like if you can do this is my whole thing with what I think with Antonio Gibson what I think should be done. Yes, he's okay. He's pretty good out of the backfield, but that's not what his game is. I think that you put Antonio Gibson in the slot to go along with who we have Washington taken with Jameson Williams and Terry McLaurin on the outside, and you're able to give Kenneth Walker in the backfield. I think that's an elite offense. Obviously, you have Carson Wentz to get in the ball, so that's the issue. But if Carson Wentz gets back to his MVP form, we got a completely different conversation. But I think that I'm surprised that Perion Winfrey never went here in the first 2 rounds. I guess part of me was just thinking, I like DeMarvin Lil more than I do Perion Winfrey. And I don't see anyone else here that really needs to take a defensive tackle here in this second round. But there's other guys. I felt there's other needs that people. I guess I could see the Packers maybe taking Winfrey and then waiting on Shakir and see if Shakir falls to maybe the 3rd round, because I don't think Falalele will drop to the 3rd round. I am surprised he just fell because I think Perion Winfrey is a very good defensive tackle. I just think that I would rather have DeMarvin Lil than Winfrey as well. I just think potential wise, Winfrey's more of your settle, like your solid defensive tackle that's going to go in there and stop the run. I think DeMarvin Lil, if he develops, can be a pass rushing defensive tackle as well. I mean, remember, this guy was projected to be top 10 in the draft before the season started.
Yeah, he was supposed to be.
But
yeah, I mean, someone who I'm really high on, who I was going to pick at 58 if you didn't already take him, was Wan'Dale Robinson, Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky. That would have been my pick if you didn't take him right there. Because I mean, I would like David Bell too at 58, but I don't know. I just think Robinson also could plug into that Falcons offense and be an immediate contributor, as well as Bell could. But I think Robinson was slightly more.
I was stuck between those two as well with the Bills. I mean, they went back to back, which is kind of interesting. But I was actually stuck between those two as well. I mean, Bell is more your bigger receiver. Got good hands. He's a pretty good athlete. He's more of your prototypical receiver. He kind of has an Amon-Ra St. Brown type of build to him, which, I mean, obviously, if the Falcons could get Amon-Ra St. Brown in the second round, you'd be very happy with that, especially considering your receiving core currently. But I just feel like I feel like that pick works more for Atlanta. For Buffalo, I don't think it fits very well because I'm a UCF graduate, so I have a soft spot for Gabriel Davis. However, I don't know what people are like. I don't know why people aren't like considering how good he was in that playoff game, and considering how like maybe they don't need another receiver, like another big receiver to be a wide receiver too. Maybe Davis can be that wide receiver too, and you just get a gadget player to be a guy that can kind of take that more dynamite type of play that he may have Wan'Dale Robinson may have games where he doesn't touch the ball the whole entire game. We'll have a couple of games where he'll get 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like this is what he is. I mean, at Kentucky, he was the entire offense. Like it was either run the ball with Chris Rodriguez or throw the ball with Will Levis to Wan'Dale Robinson. That was about it. Or jet sweep to Wan'Dale Robinson or screen pass to Wan'Dale Robinson. Just literally just found a way to get him the ball, which is why I think if you add him to Buffalo, I think that works tremendously because Josh Allen with his arm could find ways to get Wan'Dale Robinson the football. Like you could send him on a little drag route and he'd somehow turn it into a 10, 15-yard game because Allen would throw him open. I mean, I will say I'm surprised Roger McCreary fell away to 55. I know he's handsy and stuff, but I feel like he's got the potential to be. I mean, I've seen mock drafts where he's gone first round. But we kind of talked about this at the beginning of the draft. If you go back and watch the first episode, we kind of talked about how this is kind of an interesting draft and that you could really easily see Arizona. You could easily see guys go late first round or late second round, and it wouldn't look crazy for either if it's the same guy. Like McCreary, I could see going in the back end of the first round, the same way I could see a David Ojabo going in the back end of the second round, or even a Christian Watson. Like these guys, I could see going in the back end of the second round, or even Sam Howell. Like certain guys I could see going in the back end of the second round that went in the back end of the first round. But back into like the top of the second round could also have been easily in the first round. But then you also have guys that we took in the second round, like Khalil Shakir and Wan'Dale Robinson and Alec Pierce and probably even Isaiah Spiller that could easily drop to the third round. Like there's just so many. I think there's a lot of very deep players, like deep positional depth in this draft. And I think that's why it's going to be kind of interesting. It's going to be one of those drafts you can't really just miss a game. No, you can't just watch day 1 and then not watch day 2 and day 3. Like maybe you can watch day 2 and then skip day 3, but you cannot skip both because there's going to be a ton of talent in the second round. In the third round as well too.
Yeah, it's just such a deep draft. Even going into the 4th and 5th rounds, there's still going to be a fair amount of talent on the board.
I mean, there's just that's the thing, there's just so much talent. It's just there's a bunch of very good players. Like I feel like there's a lot of times where you get into the second round, you're like, what the frick? Who do I even take here? Because there's not anyone worthy of it. Here in the second round, here we're like, oh, Roger McCreary or Christian Harris, they could easily have been first round picks. Jalen Petrie, I've seen in the first round at times. I mean, Desmond Ritter's I've seen in the first round plenty of times. Kyrie Elam, Quay Walker, Jaquan Brisker, Epicady, like Kyler Gordon I've seen in the first round. Corral I've seen in the first round. Like there's a lot of these guys, Pickens. There's a lot of these guys I've seen in the first round, which is why I think it's going to be such a fun draft to watch. But before we sign off, if you were in charge of the Falcons tomorrow, I guess later on today, I should say.
Yeah.
If you were in charge of the Falcons, who would you have them take at 8? And like if you had your top 3 choices of guys top 3 hopeful picks, and then your top 3 you think should be picked because they will be there.
My top 3 are Evan Neal, Sauce Gardner, and Trayvon Walker, who I think will be there. Will probably be Kyle Hamilton. Trying to think who else is left on the board. I would be okay with them taking Jermaine Johnson. I think he's gonna be a good talent at edge. And the more I've heard, the more I'm okay with them taking Garrett Wilson at 8. I won't be super thrilled because I think who I want will all be gone by that point. But I think I'd be okay with it. But also, I'd be okay with them taking offensive tackle out of North Carolina State. Blanking on his name.
Ike Kwanu.
Yeah, Kwanu. Yeah, I'd be okay with them taking him too. So there's kind of 4 guys I'd be okay with. Those 3 guys I really want. So, and we'll revert that question to your Vikings at 12. Who would you want?
Dream scenario would be Sauce Gardner. Would be the dream scenario. Not going to happen, obviously. Unless we trade up, which there's been reports they may trade up. I'll believe it when I see it. But if I had to guess the 3 guys I think that I would be okay with them taking that I think would be available. I've grown on Stingley. Again, I'm still kind of scared of him just because of the potential work ethic issues, but the potential of Derek Stingley is so high. So I'd be fine with Stingley. I'd like McDuffie as well. So if Stingley was gone, I'd go McDuffie. And then I'd go Kyle Hamilton if he was there. I've seen drafts where Kyle Hamilton drops down here to the 18 range. So if Hamilton was there, I would be happy with him as well. I love Jordan Davis as a prospect. I do not want the Vikings to draft him. And I will throw one other curveball in there that I would be completely happy with. So I've already named Stingley, McDuffie, and Hamilton, which fits needs. If Jameson Williams is there at 12, I want the Vikings to take Jameson Williams unless there's a top tier cornerback on the board. Because just imagining Jameson Williams, Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson on the same field, like on the same side of the ball, would just be ridiculous.
Yeah, that would be an unstoppable trio.
And then there would be no excuse for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and then having Dalvin Cook, if he can stay healthy, that would be a top 5 offense in the league.
And Irv Smith.
Yeah, exactly. If everyone can stay healthy, that's a top 5 offense in the league. That's ridiculous.
But yeah, so I hope you all enjoyed the draft. I know we will, and we'll be texting back and forth about how happy or pissed we are, or if there's any crazy moments. I mean, there's no Raiders picks here in the first 2 rounds, which I just realized. No, because because Devontae Adams trade, but there's no Raiders picks, so there probably won't be any crazy picks. But if there are, we'll definitely be talking. So we'll see you all later, and keep an eye out for the post-draft reactions, as well as some other content, some MLB content, some NBA content, as we get more into the NBA playoffs and more into the deeper MLB season.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, and peace out, guys.
See you.